Hello Hornby fans and welcome to another episode of Signal Box Special following the Great Model Railway Challenge. This week it was Heat 3 and the theme was Best of British. So without further ado, let's jump right in. I'm Mike, it's my birthday, and welcome to Signal Box Special. So first things first, as always, spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about Heat 3 of the Great Model Railway Challenge, and we will be discussing the winner and the layouts, and we'll be talking to the winner. So if you haven't seen the episode, go and watch it and then come back afterwards. If you are still around, thank you for joining us, and this week it was the Cambrian Coasters versus the Railmen of Kent and the first ever female team, the Loco Ladies. The theme was Best of British and we had everything from giant Yorkshire puddings to crochet trees to King's Cross and St Pancras. There was some fantastic detailing on display, and although the judges this week were looking for a bit of a wow factor, I think the detail on display is what made this episode. The Scratch Build challenge this week was quite a difficult one, I thought. It had some interesting items, including a whisk, which quite creatively the Loco Ladies used as a partially deflated hot air balloon, which I thought was great. But yeah, it was quite a difficult challenge. And then in the dying embers of the competition, Cambrian Coasters had a short circuit and they weren't even sure they were going to get their locos running for the judges in their final layout. Luckily for them, they did get them running, albeit with a few hitches here and there. But overall, I think it was a great episode full of brilliant modelling and the layouts looked fantastic at the end. But ultimately, it was the Railmen of Kent that took the win and progressed to the semi-finals. We got the chance to sit down with Captain Fred Garner to talk about his layout and his inclusion in the episode. Take it away, Fred. So, firstly, thank you for being here on Signal Box and for giving up your time.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to join you this morning.
And obviously now you've managed to see the Heat 3 that you were involved in. Did you enjoy the episode?
Yeah, we really enjoyed the episode. We thought they'd done a great job in editing it and capturing so much in the show. It's very different. The broadcast is very calm and quiet, and they managed to clear the floor so they don't catch any of the crew in the background.
Yeah.
But I can tell you when it's there and you're actually doing it, it just seems very busy, very frenetic. There's the camera crew are looking at what you're doing. You've got the sound man with the boom. You've got the director asking questions, and it has been amazing for me, the contrast between the experience that we had while we were there and then how it comes over on the TV.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can't see.
It is amazing. I think it's down to the skill of the crew, and we were regularly being asked to be quiet on set, especially the first day when they're doing all the setting up. So obviously, what do you want to do? You want to be using your hammer to knock track pins in. You want to be cutting track, and there'd be lots of shh while they were filming. But you get through that. We found the crew were very helpful. We enjoyed working with them, and you kind of get to know how they need to work, and you kind of structured your work around them.
Oh, that's nice. So obviously it was Best of British in this heat as a theme, and what inspired your particular layout for that heat?
We immediately went down a route of Best of British Engineering. That's kind of my background. I'm a chartered civil engineer. I'm a fellow of the Institution of Civil Engineers, and I've spent a lot of time working around St Pancras and King's Cross. So a lot of the inspiration for doing that, I suppose it came from me, of my ideas as to how to respond to the brief. And I didn't know, but I just said to the guys, particularly to Chris and Nick, that were the guys that Scratch built. Nick built St Pancras and Chris built King's Cross. And it was a bit of a shame Chris didn't really get a credit for his work on the King's Cross facade. It's just the way it panned out.
Yeah.
I also I wanted to keep the theme, and our philosophy was it was a model railway. And I've been building model railways for a long time, and in my early years, I was always inspired by the little Pico plan books that you could get by C.J. Freezer.
Okay.
And if you look, there's a lot of a C.J. Freezer influence in that track plan, with an upper level terminus, lower level continuous loops. And I wanted to create that feel, and it kind of suited the if you got King's Cross and St Pancras, where you don't have to look far to get the Metropolitan line, and stations like Barbican where you've got the big retaining walls. So it was just a few steps of development on, and we ended up with the plan. I think we had about 10 iterations of the plan
Oh, wow.
to get the one that we came up with. So I used a bit of software planning, a software planning tool to set it up.
Okay.
We went for set track, so that we knew for speed and simplicity, and we went for the foam underlay for simplicity, knowing we could get a reasonably neat finished job, because we wouldn't have a lot of time to do the more. I know you get a better, more detailed effect using glued ballast, but it's also more time consuming.
Yeah.
We took that view that that's how we'd approach it. And then, sticking to the Best of British theme, we had a big brain dump on everything that we could possibly do to reflect that. But once we'd settled on King's Cross and the St Pancras theme, there's a reported story that Queen Boadicea fought a battle against the Romans just north of King's Cross. There was a road there that was called Battlebridge Road. And that reflected the fact that she fought the battle there. And actually, I don't think she fell in battle. I think she was actually poisoned, a bit further down the line. But reportedly, she's buried under platform 8 at King's Cross.
Really?
So that's how we got the name for the layout, Boadicea Park, as a tribute to the Queen Boadicea. Obviously, a Best of British from the distant past.
Oh, wow.
And then obviously the thought process went, well, what else can we do? Well, Best of British, you've got to get a Union flag in there, and that's how we came up with the layout for the park. And then we went Festival of Britain, and then I said to Chris, do you think you could make a Skylon? Because that's a really iconic piece of work. He said, oh, I think I'll have a go. And again, to be fair, Chris put an awful lot of work into that Skylon. It was the centre part of it is actually a whittled down broom handle that he spent time whittling down and then painting up nicely and mounting it on the wires and on the structure. So it actually sat pretty well as the original Skylon did at the Festival of Britain from 1951.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's pretty impressive. Well, yeah, I mean, there was lots of elements of the layout that were very, very impressive, and unfortunately, you didn't get to see a lot of it from the shots that they picked. But yeah, what I saw was very, very good modelling.
Thank you. Yes.
You spent quite a while on making sure the track was laid right. Why did you feel that was such an important part of the layout?
Well, we'd gone for that balance between running trains. As I said, it's a model railway, so the trains had to run. So that balance between running the trains and the scenery. And I know that it's something that's very close to Steve's heart. Through watching series 1 and the early episodes here, you can see that he places a great importance on that. We'd gone quite a way to choosing the rolling stock that we were going to run on the layout, and then if we've gone to that trouble, I wanted it to run properly.
Yeah.
So we did take our time in making sure that those 2 continuous loops would run properly. And then also that the gradient up to the upper terminus of St Pancras would also work properly as well. I think we had about 12 or 13 sets of points on the layout.
Wow.
I electrically wired them all, so they all worked. Again, another thing that didn't quite make the show.
Yeah.
But actually, they were all wired and all worked from a control panel hidden behind the warehouse in the rear left corner.
Oh, wow.
So again, with that amount of input, I wanted to make sure it all worked properly. John, I thought John did a great job. I mean, John is very creative anyway, and I thought his bit of work on the spiraling helix, and actually that's another little inspiration, because the Francis Crick Institute, of course, has been built next to St Pancras.
Yeah.
So there is actually some relevance there in that sort of DNA spiral that he did.
Oh, wow.
And interestingly enough, I don't know if you saw the little grey circular discs that it was mounted on. They were actually the knockouts from the baseboard. Underneath the baseboard, which is plywood, there's some knockouts you can just punch out to allow your cables to run through. So we saved all of those. They never chuck anything away. And we painted them up and we used them as the base for the Henry Moore sculptures that he'd made from the pebbles from the beach. And we used it as the base for his Scratchfield Challenge Helix spiral.
Yeah.
So I thought his bus stop was pretty inspired.
I was going to say that.
You know, he came to us and said, "What are we going to do with this?" And we didn't know, but it was John that came up with that. And I thought his execution of it with the two, he just used the two rods from the whisk to support it, and then he drew the little timetable and the LU sign or the LT sign by hand. I thought that worked really well, actually.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Sometimes it's those sort of things that I think win it, the just that little edge that they give it.
Yeah, and we decided, obviously, a big feature of the Euston Road at that point in front of King's Cross is the buses, you know, the buses that run up and down there. So I think he probably looked at that and thought, oh yeah, I could probably make a bus stop out of this, and it actually fitted what we'd already got on the layout.
And you created we'll say it was a wagon lift. That's probably not the right term for it, but how difficult was that to create, and what inspired you to put that in the layout and make that?
Well, there was an original wagon hoist at St Pancras. It was at the north end of the station, and it used to take wagons that had beer in them down to the vaults underneath St Pancras.
Oh.
I don't know if you know. I mean, St Pancras is elevated on a series of arches with undercrofts under there. Originally, because St Pancras goes over the Regent's Canal, whereas King's Cross went under the Regent's Canal, and that's why there's a difference in height between the two stations.
Okay.
So in that space underneath St Pancras, it was designed, I think, for beer barrels to be stacked 3 high. If you go, you know, it's a shopping arcade now, isn't it, next to the Eurostar station? But if you look at that, you can see the steel columns that are there.
Oh, right.
And they used to bring the beer down from the Midlands breweries like Burton-on-Trent, that's a brewing town. They used to bring those down by night and then take the wagons down via them. It was like a hydraulic or mechanically operated hoist down below. Then they use horses underneath to shunt them into position, and they'd obviously, you know, unload the beer that way. So I was inspired by that. It wasn't quite in the form that I built it. I then had to, having taken that concept, I wanted to build something that I could build and would be visible. So I just kind of sat at the workbench and started sketching something out, a simple framework that would allow a piece of track to basically travel between the two levels. And I had 2 or 3 goes at it before I got one that worked, but I kind of prototyped it on the bench in the garage, and then you know, you saw the finished result in the show.
Yeah, it was really, there was a lot of impressive elements to it. Was there anything that you particularly liked of your rivals' builds?
I like the imagination that went into the Cambrian Coasters a food theme layout. I thought that was a really creative interpretation, and I really like the fact they got the screen there with the lady at home cooking something in the kitchen as part of the food festival. I thought that was a really clever idea. And I really did like the large scale pasty on the wagon. I thought that was a lot of fun. And then I must admit, on the Loco Ladies, I really did like their crochet trees. I thought when you stood back, that was a really kind of an impressionist based view of with the different colours in it. I thought that was really good, and I definitely liked, if you looked at the front of their layout, which you didn't see a lot of in the show, there was a really nice beach scene. They got people on. They got little beach huts. They got people on the sand on the beach, and I thought that was really good. They put a lot of detail into their layout. You know, if you looked at all the signs that they'd made with the prices of hiring the surfboards, or you know that did come through on the show. I thought it was really nice. A lot of thought went into that, and a lot of detail in it.
And of course, the big question: how did it feel to win the heat?
Oh, I think it was relief, because we put so much into that. The first, as you probably know, the first show in the series, you're given a certain amount of time up front to prepare. So we've had that layout in our front room for about 2 months from the time it was delivered. You know, just kind of working our way through bit by bit as we got closer to the show. And then, of course, we had to break all that down take it up to Forley Hill, and then start to reassemble it for the purposes of the show. But so there was quite a long build time beforehand, or prep time at least. We got the nervousness about how would our scratch build challenge, how would our pre-build items be counted? Because we built such a big pre-build item, St Pancras. Actually, that counted as 2. I shared it all with the judges beforehand. So we knew St Pancras was 2 pre-builds, and then we had four others, including the hoist. So there was all that tension beforehand, and then there was kind of the rush of the build. It really is frenetic. You're working from early in the morning to quite late at night, particularly for the first 2 days, to get it to where you want it to be. And then, of course, you've got the nervousness of, will it all operate properly? We had a little panic just before the judging, where the roundabout stopped working because the disc of tarmac and card that formed the top part of the roundabout, it had managed to de-glue itself from the spindle that was coming up from below. So it was a very quick application of super glue to get that to work and get it running again just before the judging. So I think it's probably fair to say there was an immense sense of relief initially, and then an immense kind of proudness that actually we delivered what we set out to do, and that everyone had worked really hard to produce what we thought was a really nice layout, fulfilled the brief we'd set ourselves to be recognisable, have the nice iconic structures in it, meet the brief, but also run trains. And we were very pleased to be able to run a nice selection of trains on it, including the Royal train, which made it into the show, which I was quite pleased with.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I felt for me the right team won, and that's not to say that the other layouts weren't great, but I thought there was just something very, I want to say, crisp and very polished about your finished layout. And yeah, I was very impressed. So congratulations for winning the heat, and of course we look forward to seeing you in the semi-finals.
Thank you to Fred for talking to us, and congratulations to Fred and the rest of the Railmen of Kent for their win and their progression into the semi-finals. I really liked this episode. I thought it was a really interesting episode that looked a lot at the detail and the scenes that were on the layout, rather than, I know the judges were looking for a particular wow factor, but I think sometimes that simpler, that detail, those scenics, they're really impressive to me. I really enjoyed the large Yorkshire pudding. I thought that was a really funny addition to the layout. The crochet trees were something completely different that I've not seen before, and they really showed off the personality of the loco ladies. The King's Cross and St Pancras stations were really impressive. Not only just the sheer size of those models, but the detail and the fact that it was created in 40 hours, which was absolutely unbelievable. The forced perspective using the N gauge to create depth on the layout, I thought was a really smart idea, and something that just really showed off how creative you can be on a layout. And overall, I just think looking at that detail was just something special to me, and I really like this episode. So we picked a few comments from the past episode, and first up, it's Bob on YouTube. Bob says, "Nice video to watch, thank you, but you must wind up that clock." I really shouldn't I? Up next, Jason Elliott on Facebook says, "This makes my Friday evening just the best." We agree, Jason, and this weekend you're going to get double dose, because it's not just going to be on Friday, it's also going to be on Saturday. So there you go, a double dose of Great Model Railway Challenge. Up next, Laurie Calvert, hi Laurie, on YouTube says, "Nice to see more sci-fi in a layout." Of course, Laurie is a sci-fi aficionado and was in the first series of Great Model Railway Challenge, and it's always great to see a little bit more of that sci-fi look, of course talking about the War of the Worlds layout. So thanks for that, Laurie. Last but not least, Amory Junction on YouTube says, "Was great to see this. Really good to see some extra things, and good to see me again and shots from the show. Really good, Nathan from Team Phoenix." Well, thank you, Nathan. It was great for us to watch you in last week's episode. You put in a brilliant effort, and it's always amazing to see young modelers being so passionate about the hobby. So thank you for that, and thank you for the support. Looking ahead now to Heat 4, and the theme is Uncharted Territory. 3 teams will be battling out for a place in the semi-finals. Who's counting rivets? The 3 Millers and the Titfield Thunderbolts. Don't forget to tune in this Friday at 8 p.m. to Great Model Railway Challenge Heat 4 on Channel 5. And of course, come back next week where we'll be talking to the winner of Heat 4. Thank you for watching as always, and until next time, I'm Mike, you've been great, and I'll see you at the next stop.